So I think we're live now, Emma. This is it.
We are. It's real. It's happening.
No more rehearsals. Rehearsals? What's the rehearsal? So this is a bit of an experiment. Hello, everybody. My name's Richard, and I'm from Always Possible. Really delighted that some of you can join us this morning. It's the first time I've done this on LinkedIn. So if it all goes horribly wrong, I'm blaming Emma. If it goes very, very well, then we'll do it again. So this morning we are looking at, it's just a chat, it's just an informal exploration about planning and how to plan when planning is impossible. We know that people have had some real challenges over the last 18 months, just in terms of getting their heads around how on earth you forecast, how on earth you look ahead, days, weeks, months, when everything's changing. But also more broadly, the benefit of working with so many small and growing organizations as I do is you get to see so many different ways that people approach planning. And I think there are some objectively good ways and some objectively bad ways, but also within that there's quite a spectrum, and I thought we could explore that a little bit as well. But first of all, Emma, really glad to be chatting with you. Do you want to just introduce yourself and say a little bit about your work and your world?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And firstly, apologies for the seagulls. They are joining me from outside the window as we're talking. So keeping it real, as they say.
They're very good at planning.
They are. They are. So the proper chip thieves of Brighton, it's where I'm sitting at the moment. And I'm an independent consultant, business consultant and a leadership coach. And I work with lots of businesses, especially in the scale up and small business and social enterprise sectors. My background is a bit more corporate. It's in kind of large scale project management, in lots of planning, lots of transformation projects, and all of the big gnarly projects and spreadsheets and planning that's needed to get those over the line. But what I do is take that kind of big business experience and then take the best bits that I think will work most appropriately for smaller businesses. So I've kind of been, seen and done that aspect, and then from that part, okay, well, if that's huge, well, what do we need today? What does this business need for the next month, for the next 12 months, on a scale that's more appropriate? And that's what I love doing. So I, do that with loads of different businesses, and that's how I fill my days, and when I'm not digging in the vegetable beds after I finish work or in the weekends.
I do a lot of planning whilst digging in the vegetable beds. I find it very good for creative thinking. So I guess, to summarize a little bit about your approach to this, is how to turn mountains into molehills, is how to break them down and to tackle the enormity of whatever's in front by looking at it one step at a time, which is great. And that's what we'll delve into. So those who don't know me, I'm Richard, and I'm Chief Executive of Always Possible. We're a rather unique, I think, development consultancy working on big public service design and infrastructure projects, trying to tackle social and economic problems in collaboration, but also we spend half our time working with individual businesses, particularly small and scaling businesses that have got some big ambitions, looking at which direction to go in and want some help making decisions. Both Emma and myself are currently mentors on a new program called the 100, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And the 100 has one purpose, which is to gather at any one time 100 of the most exciting and ambitious and forward-thinking businesses, small, big, tiny, whatever, who want some support with their planning and to think about how to break down some of the opportunities or challenges that they've got in new ways. And so we'll cover a little bit, I think, this morning in some of the tools and techniques that we're using through that. So first of all, Emma, before we get stuck on the sort of COVID chat, because I think obviously that has been really disruptive and has changed the way that people plan. First of all, do you think all businesses need a business plan, full stop?
Yes. Next. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And you know what, it can be 20 pages, it can be absolutely huge, or it can just be on the back of the front of your very small notebook. You need something to work towards, because small business owners especially are multi-talented. There's multiple facets to what they do. And it's really hard to keep track of what it is you should be doing and focusing on, and what the strategic priorities are for your business when you're frankly just juggling absolutely everything. Throw in family, throw in everything else, and all of the things that we do alongside business and work. And it's hard to keep focused. So I'd always say for a business plan, you absolutely need one. And there are some things you have to have in it, and then there are some nice to haves. So there's two levels. People, you don't need to be scared off by thinking I need to have it investment ready, because you're not necessarily going to go out pitching for investment, but you should know the few key points of what you need to keep track of to operate, really.
And I think that's the key thing, and this goes for early stage businesses and startups, but also I think very much for very established businesses that are needing to refresh and renew and innovate, is that the fear often is that there has to be a one size fits all. When someone says, "What's in your business plan?" still people are thinking about what the bank manager would ask for 20 years ago when you were going in for that loan, and it would be a totemic volume of a 100-page essay with granular forecasts going up for the next 10 years. And actually, as you said, there's some things that need to be in it, but there are different ways in which a business plan can be presented, and the more live it is, the better. The more, but there are people who need them to be really visual. So where you've got diagrams, you've got charts, you've got the ability to be able to almost kind of read it like a map. And then other people like narrative, they like lists, they like to see how one bit joins up to another bit. So I think it's really important, firstly, before people write a business plan, is to think about, well, how do I retain information? How do I organize my thoughts? What's the best way for me to be able to use this document rather than to do something that other people said I need to do? Are you a visual thinker, or do you like lists?
A bit of both, actually, but I tend to always go, and I've just been doing that this morning, right, get the A3 paper out, get the coloured pens, because I'm very much, let's use left brain, right brain to be creative and not have to think in a list format. Lists are brilliant as an output, but you have to think much wider. You have to think creatively and not be encumbered by, well, if it doesn't fit in a spreadsheet, I can't have it. And then you can move into the lists, and you can move into whatever tools and templates work. I mean, even having a SWOT analysis, it's literally a cross on a page with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for your business. That as an exercise, as part of your business plan, is brilliant, because it helps you to think about, well, where am I? What are my opportunities? What are my blockers? And so anything like that is that kind of middle ground, I think, is really powerful. And if you can get it on a page, stick it by your desk, even better, because you're not going to leave it in the metaphorical bottom of the filing cabinet for another 12 months.
And you've mentioned one tool there, SWOT analysis, which, as you say, it's across on a page with 4 letters. Most tools for planning are ridiculously simple. I mean, stupidly simple. That some people have made a lot of money out of tools that, frankly, my 7-year-old could probably have invented if you'd given him enough enough of a brief. Things like the business model canvas, which is really helpful as a way to kind of put a business plan together in 20 minutes, is a bunch of boxes with some names. Things like the stakeholder quadrants, which I use a lot with businesses when I'm working with them. If we've got a fairly short intervention, map out where your stakeholders are, where in terms of influence and interest in your business right now. Where are your customers and different types of customers? Where are your investors or funders? Where are your staff? How much influence do they have over the day-to-day of the business? How much do you want them to have? And then by plotting them on a little quadrant, and then being able to move them, thinking, okay, where do I want them to be? Well, that action of movement determines what actions you're going to need to put into your business plan. I want those people to be a lot more invested and interested in my business. Well, that involves moving them there, and that will involve doing something. That will involve some marketing, or it involves some engagement, or it involves some investment time. So tools are pretty easy to use, but I know a lot of people feel, well, I don't understand that, or I've not used that, or I've not seen that before, so they just get put off by the name.
I think that's really valid, and I think even if they're really simple, it's having somebody guide you through it. That's where the power is, and I think it's often helping people to understand that it is straightforward, but it's okay that it looks easy. Because we also think we need to be, really heavy with all of the infrastructure, and we have to have something amazing that helps us with SEO, something amazing that helps us with our online marketing and our campaigns and our accounting. And suddenly you've got somebody who might be, say, in the creative sector, sitting there going, oh, there's all this stuff I have to be an expert in, but you don't. And I think the power of what we do often is just helping people to navigate that. This is okay for you right now. This works for you now. And if this is what it's going to take to help move your business forward and increase your confidence and, comfort, then that's really important, I think.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be super complex and,
No, it shouldn't be complex at all. And I think that's something we're doing with the organisations joining the 100, is that sort of translating jargon into something that's right for them. Some people might look at, what does cost structure mean, or what do customer personas mean, or what is omnichannel marketing, and you go, well, let's strip back what it means for your business, and it means, what do things cost, and what profit will you make on it? It's, how many different ways can you talk to people who might be interested in what you're doing, and if you can make it tangible, looking and unpicking a little bit the way that people build their services and products, and go, right, it's that thing, it's just called something different on this tool, so let's change that name. And I think that's really important. So the last 18 months have been a bit of a bleep word for many businesses. Quite hard to plan and forecast when you have no customers, or it's illegal to open your business. That's always a clincher. Or we know what's happened to a lot of businesses, certainly particular sectors that have had the rug pulled from underneath them. But also, conversely, there have been many businesses who've seen unprecedented growth because of demand for their services, certainly a lot of digital services, and have not really been that prepared for it, because their plan said, well, this is what we're going to be doing in 2020, 2021, but the reality is that this is what we're doing. So I'd be interested to have a look at that, and what you've heard and seen in some of the businesses you've been working with, in terms of what. Let's go back to sort of last spring, summer, when we were in emergency mode. What did people do when they realised that the plans they had were now completely useless?
I think we went through that kind of grief cycle to start with, but there's definitely, what I noticed was a lot of hunkering down. Mm-hmm. It was, okay, we either have to close something up, we have to get everyone at home, we have to, pivot, that word that hasn't been used much for the last 18 months at all, to sort of understand what's needed. But there was a sort of a hunkering, and then it was, now this is what it's going to feel like for the next few months. And so we had change with businesses growing 1,000%. We had businesses that have only now just reopened, and we've got businesses who are still impacted in certain sectors. And so you've got two ends of the spectrum, I think, where some people have had to really retrench and go back to basics, which is harsh. But I think it's almost perversely, it's a good exercise to say, well, what do I need as opposed to what do I want? And so you've then got a bit of pragmatism, because we can often bloat businesses with things that are on the peripheral, yet we don't need them in our operations. So that was kind of one aspect. And the others that have grown exponentially are equally struggling, because their plans, they've literally ripped up and gone, well, that was nice then, but right now, like, we're in a mad hiring spree. And that itself comes with its own challenges. So there's no easy answer.
No, but have you seen examples of people who've taken the bull by the horns and, have found quite quickly a way to reapproach planning.
Yeah.
And what did that look like? What is it that they did?
There were businesses, so if I take like the live events sector, obviously that completely stopped one day last year. So once you've kind of gone through the, well, what does it mean for suppliers and contracts and customers and, you know, cash flow, you can then start to look at, well, how else can I do it? So I was working with one business to flip the live event offering to an online offer. So how does that come out, and how does that play to your values, to your brand, to your what you're known for? Because some people have made a huge shift to, you know, from going from, I don't know, something creative to PPE. That's not necessarily you know, the answer long term, but it works to fill a gap right now, and that's fine. But it's saying, well, how do we really stick to my values and what my customers know me for? Because they still want the event experience, but it's going to be online. So what does that mean? Does it mean delivering things? Does it mean creating full experiences, not just a pub quiz? You know, there've been some great examples of, from one live event, there's a Georgina in Sussex who's delivering eggs, and now she's delivering hampers, and, you know, it's just completely different. And I just love to read those stories of absolute resilience.
Absolutely. I'm a very big fan of Georgina's eggs. Get them delivered every week. No, it's incredible how that turned around. So I wonder if then, you know, and I've been thinking about this a lot in the businesses that I've been supporting, but also in my own business, is that one of the first things when you realize that there's a massive disruption to what you do and the mechanics of how you deliver it are no longer applicable, then really the first step is to look at the characteristics of what you deliver. So as you said there, you know, with the event sector, it's about that experience. It's about, you know, actually an event might at its core in normal times be people gathering in a particular space for a particular reason, a particular networking event or a particular conference about a particular theme, and they've always used the same venue, and, you know, most of the planning is considering the parking and the catering. So when you're faced with massive disruption, it's going, okay, well, we're not going to think about the catering and the parking, but we are going to think about what is it that people have as an outcome of that experience when they come along to the conference. What is it that it delivers? Is it, you know, the learning aspect, the aspect of being able to get excited about something, you know, in anticipation of it, about meeting new people and learning new things in different ways. So then it's about putting that back into the cauldron, mixing it up and saying, okay, these characteristics can still happen, but they need a different mechanics of delivery. And I think, you know, working with training organizations, working with the arts sector, working with even engineers and construction sector, what I hear is a lot of people saying, what I'm rediscovering is the ingredients of what we do rather than obsessing about the detail of how we do it, and going back to the why and going back to the kind of, you know, what is it that the customers are ultimately getting out of this. And so then the plan keeps that at its core, but just changes the delivery. And so that can be a physical to online event, or it can be something, you know, even more radical, potentially a new type of product or a new type of service or a new way of engaging with customers, but ensuring that they get the core of the same thing. I mean, I've seen people who've certainly at the start of the pandemic felt they'd lost everything. You know, they did that, as I said, the very mechanics of how they deliver were just not possible, but have ended up in the years since creating a whole new branch of their business and a whole new street where they're delivering the same thing, but in a very, very different way. And it's become actually far bigger than what they were doing before. Where does planning come into that? Because that's a bit of both of what we're talking about. That's that exponential growth, but coming after a period of, oh my God, everything's gone. So at what point what would you recommend for people who are kind of going through a bit of that grief process and then into something that's actually quite creative and innovative and may need more resources than they've got, or may need more skills or expertise? How do you start to build a new plan that still has something old at the core of it, but then, you know, does something new?
I think it goes back to what you were saying around having the outcomes. what is it you deliver for your customers, client base, audience? And the delivery mechanism may change, but I always think you need to just look at things in smaller chunks and look at them more rapidly. So a 5-year plan, I still think is way out for most organizations, but let's, at the corporate level, we have to have a 5-year strategy, that's fine. Then we have to have a 3-year one and a 1-year plan. But you bring it back down to monthly, and then even weekly. If you go back a year, we were talking to people on a weekly basis, not a monthly basis, because you had to be really agile. But I think if you still understand that you've still got customers, or you've got new customers, because what you do is brilliant in some way, you have to keep servicing that. Mm-hmm. And so you might have to look a little bit more creatively. Like you said, at resources, I used to have a load of people that did X, and now what I really need are people that do Y. So can we train, can we change, or do I need to make a decision that's maybe a little bit more brutal and say I need to now completely recarve my business? Because what I need, is something else.
And what we're doing with organisations we're working through with the 100, the 100 being it's a set of uniform tools, but delivered in a bespoke way with, like I said, some really exciting and ambitious businesses. A really big part of it is about doing that unpicking, is interrogating the very ingredients of what it is that they deliver and how they want to deliver, and them not being afraid to ask themselves, without help, some really tricky questions. Really tricky questions, but lots of them, and quite granular questions. And so that you build up a real board of awkward, of exciting, of unexpected, of obvious questions. And I think what's been really exciting is then working with people to turn those questions into actions, because every question can have an action. If your question is, well, how do we do this, or where do we get that from, or as you said, we've got these people doing this thing, but we don't need them right now. We need these people to do these things. How do we do that? Where do we find them? Do we work with the existing people and retrain them, or do we get new people in, or how, all those questions? When you turn them into small actions that say, right, okay, well, we need to consult with some people, we need to ask for some help, we need to do some research, we need to look at some data, then that starts to build up another kind of a messy action plan, but one that you can start to group into themes, and one that you can start to see where those little granular actions might work together to form something a bit bigger. And then what we create is this now, next, and later plan, which I think says, very much what you said, week by week, month by month. I think maybe we can start to look up to the year ahead. 5 years, not a chance. But that now, next, and later plan stops it being a mountain that's got to be achieved really soon. All of this stuff, but helps people to prioritize. And I was doing a session last week with someone who felt they had a very big mountain to climb, but by going through this process, actually all they need to do in the next 3 weeks was to make 2 critical decisions with some evidence based upon it, which suddenly you could just see the kind of pressure leaving them, their shoulders going, okay, well, let's focus on that, and then we can move on to the next thing. And that felt really manageable. Have you, in terms of kind of, now, next, and later planning, do you think that sounds too simple, or do you think that's a useful route to go down?
I think it's perfect, because it goes back to the simplicity, and we're often, I think, especially as being a business owner, you are ambitious. You make these big plans. We're also, I think, taught you have to set big goals, and they have to be lofty goals. But if you don't reach them, well, how does that feel? Mm-hmm. And so having a plan where you say, right, so now I just have to do this thing today or this week, and then next, once I've done that, ticked it off the list, I can move on to do the next thing. Brilliant, that'll move me forward. And later, when things are kind of going along the path that I want, or I reflect if they're not, then I can make a plan for the next stage. You're still winning. So at the end of it, even if you don't hit the top of that mountain, you're probably, 3/4 of the way up it already. Yeah. Which, with some good guidance, and again, that simplicity with somebody taking you through it, is beneficial. And I think actually our role is to be reassuring. It's not a case of saying we have to use this really complex set of tools because it's the only way forward. But it's, it's okay. We've got your back. We can help you with this, and just kind of provide reassurance.
Yeah. We've got sort of 5 minutes left of this chat. So if you're tuning in, and thank you if you are, do feel free to ping us some questions. No questions too small or too silly or too scary. We'll have a go. Something I've been talking about a lot with businesses that are having to rethink the way that they plan, and certainly having to change some things about their delivery or their team, or some of the mechanics that will obviously have an impact on their customers or clients, because that's going to be visible. One of the challenges they've had is how to communicate the change of plan, how to communicate some of the decisions they've made, and getting that balance of being really open and honest and saying, look, things have been disruptive this year, but also getting across that reassurance that you just talked about in terms of people working with business support, but also reassuring their customers that they can still deliver, and maybe deliver it in a new way that's even better, but there's a bit of trial and error about it. So one thing I've seen a lot more of is people writing kind of statements of intent, or creating a kind of one-pager for their customers that kind of sets out really clearly, this is what we're doing now, this is how we're responding to this crisis, this is how we're still working with you, but you may notice some changes. Have you seen any good practice around that, or have you got any tips of how people might want to approach communicating with their customers? And I'm going to assume that you agree with me that saying nothing and hiding and burying your head in the sand and hoping it all goes away, which I've definitely seen, is not necessarily the best approach.
It's not. And I also think those companies that have done that have done irreparable damage, because I certainly remember at the beginning of lockdown and sort of going through, the companies that just say something, even if it's, look, we don't quite know what this is going to look like, but we're being humble, we're being open, we're being pragmatic and saying, but we're still here and we're going to work through it. You just go, yeah, okay, me too. Mm-hmm. Whereas those who say nothing, you just think, wow, you didn't even get in touch. Mm-hmm. So that for me was you kind of almost put a cross down and think, well, next time I need to renew my contract, I don't think I'm coming your way again.
Yeah.
So that's damaging. But I think it's just about showing humility, and you don't have to say everything, because people still want to know you're in control. Yeah. But just saying something is beneficial. That we're human, we're communicating. Yes, our hours have changed, or we're providing less services, but this is what we're trying to do, and we need your support to get back on track and get back to delivering what we always did.
And I think now that we've moved, or hopefully moved, for most people out of emergency and into sort of some form of stabilization and next phase, of course, some businesses have not survived the pandemic, and I'm really sorry for those. But I think what customers and clients want to hear now is what is the plan? What's next? And I think there's something about people communicating their ambition and saying, we've learnt a bunch of stuff and we're now going to apply that. And actually 2022 is going to be amazing. Come with us. I think that there's something quite exciting and compelling about that.
Well, there is. Everyone's ready for a change as well. Like you said, we're kind of varying speeds coming out of this experience. And some people are still very, very bruised. But others are flying high. But I think you can't do it with arrogance. You still have to understand that we're going through that lived experience together. And not everyone wants to see that someone's shouting from the rooftops and going, hey, it's great to be me. Sorry about where you are. But it's that, how do we get there together?
Yeah. Question from Dan. What are the top 3 quick wins he can do to start planning effectively?
Ooh. So I always think, start with the end in sight. Sit down with a big bit of paper again, and what are your goals? What are your ambitions? Think about, always hold on to your joy. Why did you start this? And that's something that business owners can forget when we sort of get into the weeds. But think about your goals. What is it you want to do? Could be balance, could be financial, whatever it happens to be. And then you look at working backwards from there. So again, now, next, and later, it's, if this is where I want to be, well, what do I need to do to get on that journey? Therefore, what do I need to pack in the bag? So what do I need to write on the list to go shopping for? It's almost that basic. And then just start today. There's no better time.
Yeah. I was talking to an engineer once who talked, because I'm a really big fan of reverse engineering and actually the process of doing that in planning as well. And that's something that we've built into the 100. but I said to them, where do you start when you're planning, to build something enormous and complicated? And they said, well, when you design a balloon, you start with the balloon. You don't start with the string. So it's often too easy to start with just the thing that's in your hand and then build up, but take a long time or go circuitous routes or not have everything you need. But to start at the end, visualize it, feel it, be really clear and specific about what the end goal is. Like, give yourself, really interrogate what the end goal looks like. Not just we'll be turning over X amount of money, but where from and how does that feel, and what's that enable you to do, and what has that impacted your staff team, and does that get people to really think about what that looks like, and then to ask all the questions to work their way back. My answer to you, Dan, what are the top 3 quick wins you can do to start planning effectively? Join the 100. Everything you need is at www.alwayspossible.co.uk/the100, and there is cheap or free support to do exactly everything that we've been talking about. I'm conscious we're out of time, and I think someone's kicking you out of where you are.
Someone's knocked on the door and said, I've got an 11:30 in here, so I need to work from the end in mind and probably get out of here quickly.
Emma, a joy to be chatting with you. I hope we get to do one of these again. Thank you so much for your wisdom. And
thank you.
Yes, so everybody tuning in, thank you very much. We're going to do a few of these, I think, over the next few months, looking at different aspects of business support and development. As I said, you can find out everything you need about the 100 at www.alwayspossible.co.uk/the100, the letter the, word the, and number 100 100. Wonderful. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speak to you
Thanks for inviting me.